last week on the SMITE Console League.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome in. It's time for the SMITE Console League. Taco, we've got a great day of Console League action coming at you.
Doing a great job pushing Ollie between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, that's filthy like a Wendy's dumpster. That's so nice that Tier Toxic was able to find the shield to push Ollie back. VGSGods couldn't quite hold on. An aerial in 2-0 fashion take down VGS.
A very dominating game yet again.
Yeah.
Whether it was the Chang'e in game 1 or the Hell in game number 2, the theme of the game definitely came down to sustain.
We still got more console to talk about here today.
And Davos Disciples is an interesting team. I think that they are definitely considered the second best team outside of Team Rival, losing to Team Rival in the previous set, whereas Team Jellyfish, a little bit more unknown, kind of a few question marks as to what they're really going to bring to the table.
Okay, we're going to end the game now. 21-30 on the clock, 35-6. And we were saying Team Jellyfish looked better to start that game, and they did.
A little bit vicious there from Davos for sure at the end, playing with their food a little bit. And none of these teams can really expect any of these sets to be for granted any longer. And even here today, Cavalry is going to be in that first pick position up against Big Money, and a lot of focus has been surrounding this early game as of late.
20 and 20 apiece, barely into the 30-minute marker.
Yeah.
This will go to Big Money, but I have a lot of respect for Cavalry making that Fire Giant call and sticking with the calls.
Into the picks and bans we go.
I definitely think that this was just Fatal Ambition coming up to play today, especially J-Pro. The
Agreed.
set was phenomenal. The Thor was fantastic.
VGS and OutCold are up at the top. That's a bit surprising. OutCold kind of had a firm grip on it in Phase 1, and now we're on to Xbox EU, where Rival are still up at the top, but Dabo's on their heels, just like we saw in Phase 1. Ebog actually right up there with Nemesis, who have been given a loss, and Big Money all tied. It's a 2-1 redirectional tie up there. Hype Unit still the top 3-0 untouched, but Fatal Ambition are right there.
Good morning, and welcome to the SMITE Console League, another fantastic week of action on the sticks. My name's Tom Pattinger, and to join me to break down all the action is going to be Anatoly Alexeyev. How you doing, buddy?
Feeling really good on this Monday, August 19th, to start things off between the number 1 versus the number 2 team out of the PS4 European console side.
Exactly, totally setting the table here as I get ready for it. That's why I'm excited. We're going to see VGS and OutCold Gaming go head-to-head. Like you said, some of the top teams here in this region, some strong stuff. You got to see the little bit of a recap of what happened last week. You heard Aggro talk about Tier Toxic, some other names on these rosters kind of getting mentioned. Absolutely. Let's take a look at how everybody's standing right now as far as the scene is concerned. This is what we've got to look at. Top team, VGS. Second team, OutCold Gaming. And that's who we're watching.
The last time we saw these two teams face off, it was in week number 2, where VGS did find the 2-0 victory. Since then, they both fell to other teams, so the plus-minus differential favoring out VGS thus far with a +2.
That's how you want to look for it right now. VGS have one game above them, but OutCold Gaming, no slouch. I mean, this team certainly can bring what it needs to when it needs to. And right now, Toli, I think it needs to. What do you have in store, or what do you think they have in store for us today?
VGSGods are going to be relying heavily upon Drizzle in the jungle position. I'm expecting that to be the matchup to watch. It's going to be Drizzle up against Kinder Warrior.
That's who we're looking at. Kinder Warrior has been a staple of the scene for a while now in this region, looking stronger and stronger kind of every time he comes out here. As we said, that's what we're going to start off with, but we have 4 console matches for you today. 2 of them are going to come from Europe, and 2 of them are going to come from North America. 2 of them are going to come from Xbox, and 2 of them are going to come from PlayStation 4. Mix and match all across the way. We'll be seeing OutCold Gaming and VGSGods play first and foremost.
And then the last sets of the day between the Xbox North America, your favorite team out there, Blanche Fan Club, going up against Sanguine, and then another Slobberknockers should be Hype Unit up against Fatal Ambition.
I do like my teams with a little doggy of a logo, and Blanche Fan Club certainly brings that. But will they bring the pain? Will they bring the heat? Will they bring the action? That's what we have yet to see just now. Starting off in Europe, though, Anatoly, we were talking about Kinder Warrior earlier. What is it about this that you think Kinder Warrior is going to rise up today?
I think it's just his early presence, his ability to dominate that early stages, to help out his mid laner up against Synordus, or rather with Synordus, to try to set the tone of the game. He's always able to look for those level 2, level 3 ganks, and that's what I'm probably expecting to see today.
Across the way, though, he's going to have some fierce competition, players like Drizzle and other guys on the field. Where do you think is going to be, what's going to stop Kinder in his tracks?
It could be up to the support player. Hacky96 should be able to try to look for those early shenanigans. We've been seeing it in the SPL consistently, where Emilzy will try to deny the enemy jungler, and I think that a lot of console and minor league teams should be looking up to that kind of tactic, because by sacrificing your own kind of experience, you help out your team by sacrificing the enemy junglers instead.
Well, let's jump into the picks and bans here and get this game underway. Game number 1, picks and bans. We've got VGSGods versus OutCold Gaming. OutCold will be on the secondary side. They'll have 2 picks, but they'll have to wait. And of course, the ban phase comes first and foremost. If you haven't joined us since mid-season, we've got 3 bans at the top, 2 bans at the bottom, and some characters have gotten some nice rebuffs. So we'll see kind of a mix and match of the meta. Right now, those standard bans coming out, we've seen a lot of powerful hunters, carries played in this mid lane. So no AMC, who's kind of the #1 go-to there. No Uller and no Kronos.
It's funny that you were talking about the buffs, whereas AMC got nerfed in the midseason, but still receiving a first ban. It's one of those gods that you can never really go wrong with. By controlling the mid lane, you're basically controlling the enemy red buff by looking for those invades after the fact, and this leads me to believe that VGSGods were looking for more of the likes of Thor, the Isises, the Zhong, and that's why they take away the AMC themselves. Even Merlin's still available.
Isis does a lot of what you were talking about with control of the mid lane, so she'll be banned as well by OutCold. VGS wrap up their ban phase by taking care of King Arthur, and the other big guy, Zhong will be banned out by OutCold Gaming. Now, switching over to the pick phase, we've got VGS on the clock. AMC has been habitually first picked in this position with Isis ban, AMC ban, Zhong. That will leave the World Snake, Jormungandr, and he's the selection for VGS.
Wouldn't be surprised to see OCG snap the Thor and the Merlin immediately afterwards, get some global pressure for themselves, and a lot of just AoE control. You get Gem of Isolation, you should be able to control the battleground, but there are other ways besides a Merlin to do that.
And Batz is certainly going to be able to control whatever he wants, drop the party and start the nonsense. That's going to be a big deal as far as stripping beads away from different players and allowing them to get locked down by Skadi. Skadi's one of the characters that everybody was afraid of, one of the larger buffed characters in our mid-season patch. Ares got a buff, he's a go-to jungler. Thor got a slight buff, and there he is selected right here. We saw Isis get a buff, she's immediately banned. A lot of the characters that have been changed were immediately taken away. Skadi got a giant buff, she can throw the dog at you, but we haven't seen the application at a pro level. We've seen maybe 1 or 2 picks. It has not been overwhelming like a lot of people expected.
And I think the reasoning is because she's still a little vulnerable and susceptible to getting ganked in the early stages. Before you max out the permafrost, you're not getting the most movement speed to be able to dodge and weave through the traffic that's coming at you. So there are ways to shut down the Skadi, whereas if you're going, let's say, another immobile guy like a Musenkop, well, at least if you're getting ganked, you're clearing the wave, and there's a lot of turnaround potential with kills, whereas Skadi needs at least 3 to 4 items to be super effective.
Well, the first half of the draft is done, and Skadi, as vulnerable as you mentioned, will be paired up with a Geb and a Hun Batz. Hun Batz is a control character, but it leans offensive, and so it allows Skadi to kind of capitalize off of that. And if Skadi does get in trouble, Geb can theoretically save her some knockups, some stuns, and some shields, everything in the toolkit to help out an immobile carry. Across the way, VGSGods, Jormungandr, Thor, and Anhur. 2 globals, semi-globals, and Anhur is just Anhur these days. Totally, before I have you touch on them, the next bands, Terra, Oleron, and then Guan Yu and the Ravana.
A little surprised to see the Ravana and the Guanyu banned away, but it makes sense because if you're going to look to protect the Skadi, and that's the strategy that OCG is going for, Ravana creates a lot of space, Guanyu provides healing. It's just two different ways of doing that, and there needs to be a lot of protection in the backline for not only the Skadi, but also the Soul.
Soul is selected here, and she'll be going up against Hell and Ganesha. So anti-heal, anti-hell is almost what I said, kind of the same thing, honestly. OCG certainly going to want to prioritize that. Skadi, Geb, Soul, Hun, Batz, and Achilles. How well do these characters do into a healer?
I mean, you could burst them down, but the thing is, as long as the Hell can cleanse herself well-timed, that she should be fine, but that's asking a lot when there's that much control between the Fear No Evil, the Geb, Blink, Cataclysm, Knockup. Achilles is going to be looking to stun you as well. This should be a very aggressive style from OCG, but they can't overcommit to Hell because now they're going to leave their backline exposed.
I think a lot of what happens to VGSGods will lie on the shoulders of Ganesha. I think a strong silence at the right time is absolutely what you got to look for. Yeah. VGSGods versus OCG. This is the first game. We'll see how these guys do off to the battlefield.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Anatoly. It's Finch and Taco here for our very first set of the day. VGSGods up against OutCold as we move into game number 1. And we were talking about the differences between these comps here, Taco. And OutCold does have some really good control tools, but I mean, VGSGod has the silence, they've got the Hell cleanse, they've got all this rotational ability between the Jormungandr and the Thor. It really feels like VGSGods got away with a better draft here.
VGSGods can definitely be a little bit more proactive, I feel, Finch, surrounding those team fighting games, or at least picking the ones that they want to take. So much initiation power with this Jormungandr alone that I'm definitely expecting OutCold's backline to possibly be pretty easily threatened in the early game.
Interesting split that we're seeing. Looks like DragonKingJagia has come over to the solo lane. Meanwhile, Hacky is chilling in mid, pushing up Just Lion on the Skadi here in the middle lane. For what it's worth, it looks like the console has mirrored that role swap that we've seen a little bit on PC. I believe Just Lion is usually the ADC here for OutCold, but he's over in the middle lane on the Skadi here today. So not too odd. That's something we have seen up at the SPL level as well. And it's also being mirrored here in PS4.
Smart switch up though from OutCold Gaming. GunTeR Warrior being able to rotate into that red buff sooner prevents the invade potential there for ClawLegend and Hacky. Kind of just a wasted rotation in a sense. They tried to push in from that mid lane clear straight to OutCold's red buff, but when you're unable to find anything to pressure, it's kind of safe and sound for OutCold.
I think so. OutCold don't feel too bad about the way that the beginning of the game here has gone, since Hacky did spend some early time here in the middle lane, maybe bring ClawLegend down a little bit. Meanwhile, Dragon King only just now hitting that level 2 after splitting this mid wave since he started over in solo. But I was saying I kind of liked VGSGods' draft a little bit better, but I mean, OutCold's draft is also really strong. Skadi, Soul both protected by this Geb with Hunbot set up. I mean, they've got tons of potential too.
It just screams a lot of counter initiation, and that's probably going to be the biggest threat here for VGSGods, because Drizzle can look for awesome Anvil of Dawns. I think even Hacky with that Dharmic Pillars can provide big slows to kind of corral OutCold Gaming into the AoE burst damage out of VGSGods, but it's not going to be easy locking everybody down. The later this match goes, the less time that VGSGods will really have to try and strong-arm OutCold out of the jungle.
And it does seem as though you're right, that OutCold are maybe not quite as worried about that control for VGSGods. The blink there for GunTeR Warrior pickup, along with Dragon King's blink, shows that they're not as worried about getting kind of run over in these team fights. Instead, they want to have some aggression on their own. Meanwhile, VGSGods have beads there for Drizzle, even on this Thor. He doesn't need it quite as much as Unbots does, the blink, so it makes some sense, but I wonder if that kind of signifies how these two comps feel about what each other is capable of.
Well, it's the second time around here, Finch, and first buff respawns. OutCold Gaming is going to be able to hold on to all of theirs. And despite Hacky even trying to make an early rotation, Drizzle has a good chance to try and strip this blue away, and in fact will be successful in managing to punish OutCold in one sense or the other. But it's the red buff that I can't help but think that ClawLegend and Hacky are really after, and yet GunTeR Warrior and the fact that Dragon King is still hovering this mid lane just keeps shutting out that opportunity.
They've been there on that red buff spawn very cleanly. We talk about this a lot, especially nowadays, with how much extra attention there is around mid, that if you're there when the buff spawns, it's too late. You have to be there early and kind of be setting up. And GunTeR Warrior and Dragon King have been doing that well. Now, on the other side, Drizzle was able to strip away the blue buff. That's nice. All solo laners, for the most part, want to have the blue buff, so it is some damage towards FataliTyxFire, though not the end of the world.
Now, FataliTyxFire will still be able to farm up rather easily on this Achilles, and since he does have the Fatal Strike online currently, it's not like TyxFire can be super reckless when looking for poke, because going for a poke exchange with Achilles always has a little bit of risk versus reward behind it.
That's right. He just has a lower kill threshold than you, right? Because of the execute, so it can be difficult at times if you're boxing up against him. Especially in this situation for FataliTyxFire, because he's gone into the Glad Shield early on, but it can sometimes feel tough because it doesn't help you very much into the Jormungandr, aside from just whatever sustain you're getting. Meanwhile, TyxFire can pretty easily build in some fizz prots early.
And what I'm hoping for here is that VGSGods were really just trying to bide their time until they hit level 5. But now that ClawLegend, Hacky, and Drizzle all had their ultimates online, I am expecting VGSGods to be a little bit more proactive surrounding these respawn timers on OutCold Gaming's jungle, because keep in mind, Finch, you don't necessarily need the buff for an invade to be successful. Sometimes it can just be about pressuring the enemy team so much that they have to consistently back to base, or if you are successful with the buff invade, you could possibly just continue to stagger the respawn timers and even look for an early Gold Fury objective. It's not like VGSGods don't have the damage capable of bringing down a Gold Fury kind of early.
We do, and we're hitting that timing you were just asking for, Taco, where these ultimates are starting to come online for VGSGods. And they got to be careful about where they're picking to go. GunTeR Warrior's Fear No Evil, as you highlighted earlier, is very good at disrupting if they do want to come in for some setup. But if they had to pick somewhere to go, where would you want to see it? I mean, is there a chance that they can make a gank work here on FataliTyxFire on the Achilles with just Glad Shield? Or, I mean, Souls can be hard to lock down too. I mean, where should they even be looking?
I don't think that solo lane is a good direction for VGSGods, mostly because of the fact that OutCold Gaming, with this pseudo-double hunter composition in the Soul, just Lion and Raidunw would not need all that long to burst down a Gold Fury themselves. So
sure,
it'd be better for VGSGods to just try and play around this mid lane, because just Lion is a huge target for the team.
Well, this wall has already forced out purification beads from Just Lion, but GunTeR was waiting over the wall. Blink into the Fear No Evil, takes the beads from ClawLegend, and up into the air goes Drizzle. He'll come dunking down on GunTeR, who does not have purification beads, but by himself he doesn't have the damage. Dragon King's here as well, goes into the shockwave, into the Cataclysm, and Drizzle's low, but barely makes his way to the hammer to get back out.
Really nice shell timing there from Hacky as well to support Ganesh, doing what Ganesh does best, and he's trying to stop the kill from going down. But that counter initiation from OutCold is exactly what we were just talking about at the start here, Finch. It's going to be tough for Drizzle to find frequent Anvil of Dawn sometimes if GunTeR Warrior is still on the lookout with that Fear No Evil.
It's so back and forth in that middle lane, the way these engagements kind of cascade. It was started with Just Lion being hit by the wall by Drizzle, but then they swapped it up, and Drizzle was the one that was kind of under some trouble, or rather ClawLegend was, after the blink in from GunTeR. So Drizzle had to re-engage, and it just kept going from there. And it ends up being that no one falls, but VGSGods have still built themselves up a nice little lead. If we can see the chart here, Doug, nearly 2,000 gold in their favor and 1,500 experience without any kills.
GunTeR Warrior nearly wound up being a first kill there for Drizzle, but will be able to jump out of that Berserker's Barrage follow-up damage, no problem. And the main thing that I'm really keeping an eye out here for, though, Finch, is who's going to be the most fluid with their kits first, because I think VGSGods had the right idea looking for a gank on Just Lion in mid, but it felt a little bit too disconnected between Drizzle and ClawLegend. We saw the Anvil of Dawn being expended after ClawLegend had already backed off, so he's not in range to look for the Desert Fury follow-up after the fact that might have been enough to kill GunTeR Warrior.
That's exactly right. He was pushed down and not able to follow up. GunTeR Warrior is now lurking left-hand side. Marky Sparky's right on a ward too, so GunTeR knows exactly where he is, but it looks like he sniffed it out and instead falls back. You know, a thread we used to follow was which one of the solo laners rotates over and has a bigger impact, but I think the better example of that now is which one of these from the long lane, which one of these hunters rotates over and has a bigger impact. I feel like it's Marky Sparky's in a position to be the one that has more impact on the fight right away.
Marky Sparky's been pressuring out Raidunw pretty efficiently and keeping this soul confined to that tower line over there in duo. And if Raidunw is too preoccupied just trying to match the creep farm clear, then Marky Sparky should definitely have enough time to try and pay a visit. But instead it's going to be Drizzle looking to pay a visit to Raidunw. Good Thor wall, but on the Disapparate, timing just a little bit too soon there. Marky Sparky still going to exchange some poke anyway, but Hacky going to be dismantled in mid lane alongside a ClawLegend, and the counter initiate from OutCold is good.
Yeah, you could tell that Hacky was trying to keep that going. We could see the Dharmic Pillar still standing, but that favors OutCold. They find first and second blood in one fell swoop to get onto the board in a major way. They're still a little bit down in gold, but they're the ones that have been clearly able to find the kills.
Dragon King gonna rotate in, more so for harassment purposes than anything else. Marky Sparky not really in danger of dying, considering that Cataclysm isn't even available for Dragon King after that skirmish in mid, but first blood has still been drawn, and the fact that it wound up being a double kill as well, Finch, definitely gonna put a little bit of a slow here into VGSGods' potential snowball.
That's just good timing there from OutCold as well. And that's why this team was the top team for PS4 EU back in that first phase, because they can find these timing windows. Just Lion barely makes it back under the tier 1, as does Dragon King. Bit of a forced engagement from VGSGods, doesn't work. But they timed that initial gank that did find the 2 kills with Drizzle's engagement on left. They knew there wouldn't be a jungler there, so they'd have the number advantage.
Well, the number advantage was there, but as far as actually bringing down a soul with the Disapparate, that's an entirely different story, Finch. The immunity is going to cause so many different issues now for Drizzle, and I still like the idea. I like that Drizzle was trying to take some initiative with that Anvil of Dawn, but you've got to pick your timings a little bit more precisely, and from the way that Raidunw was positioned to begin with, looked like he was respectful anyway.
FataliTyxFire, who might be in some trouble here, though. He does have Fatal Strike, but it's not that strong of a tool for repositioning. He's been body blocked. And 4 members, you think that's enough? They brought plenty over, and FataliTyxFire falls. So a very easy response from OutCold is just to start up the Gold Fury, and you already mentioned what these double hunters can do. They burned it down very quickly.
Marky Sparky gonna look for that Hell Cleanse. Fear no evil, not even necessary though. Marky Sparky gonna wind up falling to that Keb knockup instead. Dragon King gotta represent 2-0-1 so far for this Keb. He might as well be the carry.
Apparently so. The Gauntlet of Thebes online, and he's already getting it stacked. So it does end up being the kill on FataliTyxFire and the Pyromancer being traded out for the Gold Fury and a kill onto Marky Sparky. So overall, I don't know. I think that it really might even be OutCold that came out slightly better, as Drizzle's in some trouble trying to trade out with GunTeR Warrior. But there's the hammer. Gets him over the wall, but GunTeR's still chasing and even has some help from Dragon King, but they didn't expect him to go into that Anvil of Dawn, so Cataclysm a bit wasted.
Still feels a little bit better though if you're Dragon King and expending your blink, because that Cataclysm was a little bit off the mark anyway, but to trade cooldown for cooldown, not necessarily a bad take here. Hacky though could be in some trouble. Permafrost's gonna come out from Just Lion, just looking to be as aggressive as possible now with that numbers advantage, and knowing that Drizzle doesn't have that Anvil of Dawn means that OutCold can now afford to dive a little bit deeper into VGSGods jungle without having to worry about the same sort of punishment.
But that earlier sort of trade that we saw where the Gold Fury and the Pyro both went down, the reason I'm saying it might be in favor of OutCold is because they got gold, but they also got the kill on the Marky Sparky, and they're slowing down that hell.
Well, it's not even about the delay of the hell for me, Finch. It's the fact that this Geb is now very much online. He's already at the level 10 mark. Sure, he doesn't have that secondary relic just yet, but that was the best punish, period. Dharmic Pillar's also going to be a complete whiff onto Just Lion, and he'll just walk it off.
Yeah, Just Lion just heads the other direction. Easy peasy for him. Marky Sparky takes the 1v1 here against Raidunw, waiting for him to come out of Disapparate. Depending on the cooldowns, there's some potential, but not quite enough. Raidunw does end up surviving, so instead we'll fight here on the right-hand side with Tier Toxic.
Raidunw's just got to keep holding on here and just focusing on the creep wave clear, because all the action is taking place elsewhere, and OutCold is cleaning up VGSGods. Drizzle under threat yet again, but we'll be able to teleport away. GunTeR, though, ran out of mana. He's going to have to back off from diving that T1 tower.
Man, if that wall had hit, that might have been a kill onto GunTeR Warrior, but I think Drizzle was either just barely out of range or a little bit off the mark with the wall. Either way, GunTeR Warrior is able to make it back out from underneath the tier 1 tower. Even still, OutCold are down in gold a little bit, but it's felt like they're the ones that have been able to have the better fights without these hunters involved so far. We'll see if they can keep that going as now TierToxic joins the fray. Desert Fury from ClawLegend comes through, but Cataclysm finds 2 at the front of the tier 1. TierToxic doing his best to hunt down Just Lion, but he will not have enough damage, and now he's behind the tier 2. Drizzle comes in as well, and Just Lion finally falls.
FataliTyxFire going to be under duress now in the mid lane, just surrounded by VGSGods. Consistent on diving this T1 tower. Might have bit off a little bit more than they could chew, though.
What an impale.
Beautiful impale onto GunTeR Warrior to stop that somersault from going through out of the Batz. Dangerous as well, because the overhand smash would have been enough damage.
That was actually a really good fight from Drizzle, because he's the one that comes in and finds the wall that cuts off FataliTyxFire. Now Raidunw is in some trouble too, and Marky Sparky finds himself a double. And this is what we were alluding to earlier on in the game, is that this team fighting potential for VGSGods, when they have this hell here, when they're able to make these big rotations between the ultimate from Drizzle and TierToxic, it just is a little bit overwhelming.
It's just the brute force out of VGSGods, but this is exactly how the composition is intended to be played, Finch. This can't be a series of hesitation from VGSGods. They need to just wrecking ball through whatever engagement they find themselves stuck in, and I love the way that they handled the dive on that T1 tower. Hacky just kind of understanding as Ganesha, he's more than capable of taking a few of those tower shots for the team, and Just Lion getting picked off there earlier was probably what really sealed the deal there for VGSGods. All that Skadi damage never really came into play.
And there's been a lot of talk lately about how warriors fit into the jungle, even better than assassins in a lot of cases, and they can build kind of tanky and still do a lot of damage. But I mean, look at Drizzle's build, man. This is old school. It's like Jotun's boots Hydras. All he's doing is trying to deal damage, and it's been working out for him so far to the tune of 3-0-2. There's definitely still some room for these assassins here.
FataliTyxFire, though, might get caught out for this proxy farm. Gonna get hit by that Mjolnir's attunement. And it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Still able to kind of wiggle his way on out of there for now.
Marky Sparky's in some trouble, though, and left, and this could be a pretty nice pick for OutCold if they can find it. But all that sustain is just too strong. In comes Drizzle, forces out the blink from FataliTyxFire, who will survive, but loses an important cooldown.
And it's just non-stop pressure from VGSGods. Both of the side lanes being so heavily controlled. ClawLegend, though, could be under fire here. Gonna use the Desert Fury, but can't find the shots to connect. GunTeR Warrior's gonna live for now.
Only needed one more to connect and couldn't find it. The Geb Shield came through afterwards and does allow for GunTeR Warrior to make some maneuvering to get away from Drizzle. VGSGods do control this space just in time for the Primal Fury to be here. They will fall back to the objective. It's no secret. There is Oracle Vision here, but I don't know how OutCold make their way in. This belongs to VGS.
Not a single ultimate available right now for OutCold Gaming. VGSGods going to take the Primal Fury, just strong-arming OutCold out of their own jungle. And again, this is exactly how VGSGods needs to keep up that level of pressure. Don't let this Geb or the Humbatz even have a chance to consistently farm, because that's what's really going to threaten VGSGods as far as their initiation is concerned the most.
And you saw on the graphs there was that dip down for OutCold. I think it was that fight where they traded the Pyro and the Gold Fury, and OutCold came out the better. They will get this Pyromancer, which they must need. But VGSGods, after that last exchange, brought this graph back in their favor, and they're not even going to get the Pyromancer. Instead, VGSGods rotate over with TierToxic and ClawLegend. Drizzle continues his assault by hunting down Just Lion in the back line, and now a solo Cataclysm on Drizzle. That's perfect. VGS, they can fight without having to worry. FataliTyxFire is pinned against the wall, and ClawLegend finds one more.
Everybody from VGSGods over on the opposite side of the map, though, means that Raidunw's finally going to get a chance for some much-needed solo farm, Finch, after all that Marky Sparky pressure. But OutCold Gaming, they might have the split push going on in Soul with Soul over there in duo, but they don't have a whole lot of control over this Fire Giant right now. DragonKing going to look for that knock up there, but it's still just not enough damage, and could possibly be in some trouble here if VGSGods decide to give chase, but instead they're going to back off before Raidunw has even more chances to try and look at that Phoenix.
Finally, the tier 2 and left does come down in favor of this Soul, but the Fire Giant goes over to VGSGods. You can see they did get a little bit back because of the way that Raidunw was able to play that on the left-hand side. But I mean, VGSGods win another fight front to back, and Drizzle's been a nightmare for OutCold to deal with on this Thor. A lot of these changes have made him stronger, but I also just like the way that Drizzle's built and played him. It's all damage.
Also, I don't really think that GunTeR Warrior and Dragon King are hovering the Skadi nearly as much as they need to be. Just Lion has to have a babysitter by this mid-game phase because that's Thor's strong point. This is his peak right now, and Drizzle, with that Hydras especially, is just two-shotting Just Lion. This Skadi has zero chance without a Geb Shield immediately for the cleanse.
Right.
And just the preventative measures in general from all that Thor damage. But I think what I'm even more impressed by is the fact that OutCold Gaming got to freely split push an entire dual lane, and despite the 2,000-ish gold that they received for it, it didn't really make much of a difference in the gold disparity between VGSGods and OutCold.
In fact, they can now make their own look. ClawLegend receives a solo Fear No Evil, responds with his own beads to stay safe. Up into the air goes Drizzle to try and pick his own target. He goes way behind the tier 2, looking for Just Lion yet again, but with the hammer already used, there's not a ton of follow-up. Drizzle might have finally bit off more than he can chew and takes his first death here of the game. Supernova comes through from Raidunw, actually very strong. Marky Sparky falls as well. ClawLegend trying to box out with Raidunw, but he's got a Geb Shield and a little bit of help coming through from the GunTeR Warrior. That's a double kill now for Soul, and I think VGSGods might have finally started to play this not clean.
World Serpent gonna get Tier Toxic out for now. That is until he decides maybe he just wants Just Lion instead, but with only one Jormungandr part of the World Serpent left, OutCold Gaming are just gonna chase Tier Toxic down.
This is very, very curious, the play we're seeing for Tier Toxic. We did also see a surrender vote coming out. I doubt that will be going through, but Tier Toxic makes it out of there. A-OK, no one on OutCold wants to chase him, but man, Drizzle just goes too far on his own there trying to find Just Lion.
Finch, look, we see it all the time, where teams just get a little too over-ambitious, but VGSGods, we just finished gassing them up for this lead that they had established, and honestly worked pretty damn hard to maintain. Just to throw it all away on one instance of over-aggressiveness, it feels so oddly timed. Drizzle might have been feeling himself just a little bit too much there.
Clearly they weren't all on the same page on that one, because the rest of the team was, well, not even the rest of the team, like a couple members were still doing the tier 2 tower dive, and ClawLegend was, you know, in his own fight there with GunTeR Warrior, and Drizzle was doing his own thing, and you just clearly got to group up in that situation and get the tower or the guaranteed objective, which I'm sure VGSGods would agree with if they watched back, so got to make sure you can make those calls in the moment as well.
Raidunw could be in some trouble here. Nice Geb Shield. Gets the cleanse off. Separate used also. Hacky gonna take a little bit of poke in exchange, but Oracle's gonna be pulled first by VGSGods, and now OutCold Gaming don't really seem all that concerned to contest it. Oni Fury gonna be respawning in a matter of seconds here, so OutCold will need to look for a challenge at the very least. They can't afford to just let VGSGods take every objective on the map.
Oni Fury rather than Gold is the one that's being looked at here now. Dragon King was locked off, but Drizzle has gone into the Anvil of Dawn, and there is some groupings, but he isn't able to find one. He kind of splits the difference in the middle. It's Fear No Evil onto 3 from GunTeR Warrior, but there's no immediate follow-up. That is good use of the Dharmic Pillars to cut the fight in half. Desert Fury for some return damage as well. But even with all this healing from Marky Sparky, there's too much anti-heal. It's not as much as you might expect. And GunTeR Warrior finds the first kill here. Now Tier Toxic isolated without the ultimate. Drizzle low in the back as well. Aegis buys him a moment, and he barely makes it out.
Dragon King is running these fights right now with all of these Geb Shield cleanses. Drizzle's going to manage to barely pull away from that Thor hammer toss, but Hacky, on the other hand, going to get caught out by that Skadi slow. Calder still giving chase and will manage to give enough of a slow for GunTeR Warrior to connect the rest of his kit. A 4-man wipe, though, for VGSGods means that OutCold Gaming has the potential to possibly kill this Phoenix, Finch.
They can take this Phoenix. They might even be able to do more depending on how quickly they're able to do this. Drizzle is still up. Hammer gets him towards GunTeR Warrior, but the up-down avoids the kill. Drizzle falls to complete the deicide. Finally, the left side Phoenix will go down. But with these low health bars, I don't know if OutCold want to stick around. It looks like Just Lion does, but instead, he'll take the back. Cooler heads prevail, and OutCold will retreat.
Just Lion cutting it a little bit close there with Marky Sparky's respawn timer, but the damage has already been done, Finch. OutCold Gaming have just been waiting for VGSGods to make the slip-ups themselves. what keeps looking like promising situations for VGSGods, they're just not taking their fights as a team anymore. It's been such an individual performance ever since that 15-minute mark, and it's kind of baffling, to be honest, because VGSGods, they're playing so well together as a team. They were playing so well when they were just focusing on the initiation surrounding Drizzle, but everybody just seems to have their own agenda now.
And this is where the all-damaged Thor starts to feel a little bit worse, isn't it? If it is going to be, you know, everyone kind of playing for themselves a little bit, then he can get blown up that much more easily when he doesn't have backup for Marky, Sparky, and Hacky, as Oni Fury does have to be dropped.
It also hurts that these last few Anvil of Dawns from Drizzle have just been flat out way off the mark, Finch.
Sure.
Without those actives being burned early on, Purification beats, Aegis, ClawLegend getting picked out of position one more time, and Just Lion could go down in response. No, instead, a good beads Aegis gonna keep Just Lion alive for now.
TierToxic, though, does come creeping up to find the kill. GunTeR Warrior removes Drizzle from this situation very early on. GunTeR kind of biding his time, but I think TierToxic's hunting him down. Able to find one charge, but it wasn't enough damage. Can't get the third. Meanwhile, Supernova cuts to the fight. FataliTyxFire can't get the execute, but still finds it anyway. And that's a 3-for-1 in OutCold's favor.
But look at where the tank is at. The TierToxic is just letting his entire backline die because he's too busy chasing around a Batz with significantly lower cooldowns than himself.
And that Batz has used that mobility well to avoid him, and now TierToxic is the one in trouble with no mobility of his own to allow him to retreat. I think he might have actually gotten a bit of the okie doke here and made his way out, but as you said, you'd much prefer your Jormungandr to be in the fight.
And that's another part of the problem here for VGSGods. Drizzle's having a lot of struggles with just landing his abilities in general right now, and Hacky really can't do it all alone. This poor Ganesh is just looking like a punching bag right now, target practice essentially for OutCold Gaming, because alone Ganesh, even with the Dharmic Pillars and a perfect dash for Peel, is still gonna have to try and bail themselves out, and there's just nothing left for Hacky. He can't initiate, disengage, and look for frequent peel all alone in that frontline potential. There's gotta be some backup somewhere, and that just has not been the case for VGSGods for the past 12 minutes now.
Yeah, this definitely feels different than the fight that we saw happening in the middle lane earlier on the dive that went so well. Now Fire Giant being pulled by OutCold, and this is all theirs. No one is around for VGSGods to contest. So the second big-time Fire Giant of the game going down in their favor, and now they can go grab those 2 remaining Tier 2 towers and even move on to some Phoenixes.
A little bit of that inexperience starting to bleed through, I believe, Finch, because OutCold Gaming, keep in mind, they are the team that's been to LAN one time before, although have been a couple of changes on the roster since then, but Just Lion, probably one of the more veteran members of this team and one of the more aggressive players, I think, of this league, has done a great job at just charging through.
He has done a good job of them. You saw them at MSI, you even saw Just Lion a little bit further as he was one of the captains when we moved on to the All-Star event, so you should certainly be familiar with him here at this point, and the rest of that roster around him is plenty strong. They've gotten the Tier 2 already in the solo lane. You can grab this Tier 2 here in mid, that much problem. But I think this should help VGSGods a little bit. It's much harder to be on different pages and split up on the Phoenix defense, right? They should all be there in theory.
You would, in theory. I like your theory, Finch, because it is a very good theory and one that we do tend to see the most often on these base defenses, but that weakened left side Phoenix is going to hurt. Once you lose a Phoenix once, Finch, it seems like it's almost impossible to keep it standing after the fact. DragonKing actually going to waste no time. Neither is Just Lion or Raidunw. This Soul and Skadi making quick work of that left side. And now Fire Minions threatening VGSGods base yet again means that OutCold Gaming can just look to focus elsewhere, and mid-Phoenix seems to be the next target.
They're not particularly split up here, or OutCold, I mean, this time. They have all 5 members trying to assault this Phoenix here in mid. And VGSGods have all 5 members here for the defense. Keep an eye on GunTeR Warrior. He's biding his time, way in the back of the fight to find a good Fear No Evil. TierToxic moves up out of the Phoenix to force back OutCold. Sacred Monkey bounce. Instead, GunTeR Warrior will choose not to take it.
That upgraded Curse to Ankh, though, is deadly right now for VGSGods. Marky Sparky's had a really tough time bringing any of that health sustain into the engagements. Good cleanse, though, from the beads is gonna, or excuse me, that's just the health cleanse in general. Cataclysm to no avail.
Yeah, it was Blink Cataclysm and didn't find really any relevant cooldowns on the back end. That's a really strong initiation for OutCold, but not their only initiation. GunTeR Warrior can still come in as well with his own Blink Fear No Evil, though it won't be as strong since they didn't pull any beats.
It's going to be a lot more difficult, though, for MarkySparky to predict the timing of that Fear No Evil. Going to have to play mostly off that Blink sound alone. And audio cues are not always easy to come by in these fights.
And so he just goes right towards MarkySparky in particular to force out the Purification Beads. Dharmic Pillars drops from Hacky on the side of VGSGods as well, but a good Supernova from Raidunw cuts the fight. Drizzle has gone up, comes way in the backline, but doesn't find anything with the Anvil of Dawn stun, and instead is relegated back to the middle of the fight.
Again, though, it's just so split up now from VGS, guys. They got members in every which direction. FataliTyxFire holding the attention of ClawLegend for now underneath that mid-Phoenix, but will manage to wiggle his way out of there. Hacky, though, has been separated so far up now, and OutCold Gaming won't be able to punish just yet, but things are getting a little bit more dangerous than what they probably need to be here, Finch. That was a rather risky pull off of the Phoenix there for VGSGods to try and take. And in all honesty, Just Lion should probably be counting his lucky stars that Drizzle, for the first time in ever, it seems, didn't seem to want to go after him with that Anvil of Dawn.
That's right. Drizzle has kind of made it his mission to hunt down Just Lion this game. But I don't know, Taco. I think all things considered, only losing the weakened Phoenix on left is actually not bad for VGSGods for that Fire Giant Siege. Now, I know that OutCold, did go and grab those Tier 2 towers as part of it, so it wasn't a full-on, 4-minute siege they defended, but for the most part, they can hold on here, push up this left side wave, and still try and remain in this game.
It's the timers, though, of that respawn for the left side Phoenix that I think is more problematic here for VGSGods, because the next Fire Giant that spawns, Finch, it's going to be that enhanced FG, and there's just not going to be as much opportunity here for VGSGods to look to contest it. Instead, they're going to look straight at Raidunw entirely, but the Soul's got the Gep Shield and the Stellar Burst. The Supernova not even needed.
Yeah, Stellar Burst is just enough damage, and Drizzle ends up dropping. Raidunw now can start sustaining himself up as OutCold Gaming are just going to start running it down. FataliTyxFire right in the middle. Cataclysm finds MarkySparky into the knockup, and Raidunw has the damage to complete the rampage. And this is the lane where the Phoenix is missing. OutCold in the 5v3 can just keep pushing down the lane.
Where is Tier Toxic?
Oh, he's chilling in
this
right.
entire, I mean, I guess I can't really blame him because he probably doesn't expect his team to look to be that aggressive on the Gold Fury, but still, OutCold Gaming in the 3v5 power play situation, they're going to catch out ClawLegend. No Actus means no life. ClawLegend will wind up falling to GunTeR Warrior here.
Well, it's just Tier Toxic and Hacky for the next 15 seconds to try and keep OutCold at bay. Fatal Strike not there, so that means they won't be able to find the execute, but Raidunw gets the kill on the Tier Toxic anyway. Mid-Phoenix does now go down, and 5 up against 1. OutCold moving to the Titan room. Drizzle will be up here in a moment, but I don't know if he can do enough. Wall into the hammer, but there's no one stopping Raidunw. He's able to freak cast onto the Titan, and OutCold take game 1.
VGSGods just had no control trying to defend their Titan there either. That permafrost was just skidding everybody all over the place, but VGSGods, Finch, I can't help but feel like they dropped the ball on this one.
I think so too. They had a pretty significant advantage around that first Fire Giant they were able to grab. It's that Tier 2 tower siege where I think a couple of them, like 2 members are on the actual tower siege, and then 2 other members are elsewhere taking fights. That kind of disconnect can definitely lose you games.
And Drizzle and ClawLegend just needed to stay with the rest of the team after they secured that initial Fire Giant. Just too many different leaders and not enough people trying to just play with the team.
That's what it felt like there in that game. There were also some times where they were fighting without the full squad. Tier Toxic not quite there with them either. Clearly some stuff to be cleaned up here in between. A quick break. We'll break everything down and get right back into the action.
INAP, powering the control room for the SMITE Console League.
Things are heating up here for OutCold Gaming. Fantastic stuff in game number 1. OCG take above the VGSGods totally. As we watch this game and here, what did you see?
I saw a lot of just end game performances differ between these two teams. The great safety net coming through from DragonKing on the Geb, saving Raidunw during that last Gold Fury. Drizzle a little bit too far forward. I was a little curious about that because the way VGSGods were able to hold their middle Phoenix was very impressive against the Fire Giant squad around that 28-minute mark. They even took the fight outside of their Phoenix, able to kind of chase OCG out. But then to kind of contest Gold Fury when your Phoenix defense was that good led to the beginning of the downfall. TierToxic was split pushing on the right-hand side. That call was a little bit misguided.
Let's take a look at the numbers here, and I got to agree with you. The Gold Fury was a little bit question mark. OutCold Gaming, though, I was looking at the Soul. Earlier on, it was kind of all GunTeR, 7-0-7 for the Jungle Monkey, but he really kind of carried the game to the middle where Raidunw was able to kind of do things. You mentioned how Raidunw was saving players as well as killing them, so working kind of both sides of the coin.
That's right. DragonKing was able to help Raidunw accelerate towards that late game and do so late game things, going for that Rada Tahuti late game, uncontested almost it felt like, and that's because VGSGods throughout the course of the game just felt a little bit too far forward, and because of that positioning they started to get punished by GunTeR, going for 7-0-7 on the Hun Batz.
Yeah, you know, I like TierToxic and what he was able to bring here totally. How can VGS help out their solo laner?
I think that it's all about how, not necessarily ganking the solo lane, because good luck trying to kill an Achilles, but it's more about maybe applying that early pressure to strip away some blue buffs. And if you can get that experience lead as a result of those invades, now maybe TierToxic will be enabled to start rotating before the opposition and then start making the impact with the World Serpent.
Well, we'll see if the World Serpent is going to get played here or if he goes in a different direction. But I think that strategy kind of holds no matter what the pick is, right? Help your solo laner kind of look for the invades and the wins on their own terms so that you can kind of transition from that short side into the rest of the world. P's and B's pretty pleased for game number 2 as we get into it. OutCold Gaming already have one under their belt. Totally, they're looking for one more. Obviously, VGSGods hoping we've got more SMITE to play.
Already doing a better job than their Week 2 performance, as they were not able to get a single game against VGSGods back then. So this is a good way to start off a best of 3 with that mentality going into the second game picks and bans. I'm thinking maybe look at the Hun Batz if I'm VGSGods, because the way GunTeR piloted that god was impressive.
I agree. I think what Soul was able to do in the later stages of the game is something that you could do largely on most carries, right? If you swap the Soul out, if you ban Soul and you give them Chronos, same situation. Even if you ban Soul and Chronos and you wind up giving a traditional Hunter, I think you can wind up in the same situation. Soul was just able to bark down towers early and kind of deal with things there. So banning that is probably haphazard. OutCold Gaming and VGS sticking to more some standard stuff here. Isis, Ullr, Chronos, AMC. We expect to see these bans. We saw them in game number 1. In fact, with the King Arthur totally, right now we're 5 or 6 as game 1 bans.
Well, VGS's jungler Drizzle is actually not going to be here today. It's going to, or at least for game number 2, it's going to be Vex Ziri instead for the game number 2. Should see a different kind of play style because Drizzle's early game very dominant. It was just a little bit too aggressive towards that late game.
Well, the Hun Batz will be banned out, and that leaves Zhong. Zhong banned out in game number 1. Here he'll be selected first and foremost. The big guy has been a very big part of the transition of mages to that long lane, and mages in general right now. Zhong is kind of king of the hill, and then the Jormungandr, like we said, I mean, TierToxic, you're going to play like that, give it to him again.
No surprise to see Jormungandr yet again. Despite TierToxic split pushing at the right side of the map towards the end, he had a great game throughout. The Terra is a nice little touch as well because of the team fight potential now. You got plenty of knockups coming through the World Serpent and then just more control from the Terra. I'm expecting maybe even a Willish follow-up from VGS, not only because of the Jormungandr knockups, but maybe just to pluck away the Anhur while he's midair.
Well, the Geb is going to be picked up by OCG, so no synergy there on a Guardian front. But Anhur chosen, taken away from VGS. VGSGods last time went with the Hell and the Anhur and tried to kind of switch things up. This time OCG go for the Anhur. That leaves VGSGods with the Skadi.
They strip it away from OCG this time around. Just Lion played pretty well, I'd say, and they controlled a decent amount of space. Difficult to lock down the Skadi before you get killed in response. Like, you can still CC her, but she's going to be dealing the damage back.
I mean, even anecdotally, which is, you know, always lame to lean on here, but watching streams and playing games, I see a lot of Skadi getting killed, but then that last Calder bite.
Oh yeah, it'll snatch
that
you
last
up.
tick of your ultimate or permafrost. Skadi will always bite back, and I think that's the important part here for VGSGods. Second round ban phase, taken care of. OCG said, you know what, Soul and Hell can be banned here. We're going to just play something else, man. VGS on the other side saying no to some of the junglers of choice. Guan Yu, certainly a jungle of choice in the console world. And at large, shouts to Layers, making everybody aware of it. And Susano, a little nuts. Hell banned. Chang'e selected by VGS, looking for the healer.
Marky Sparky playing the Hell last time around. We get a lot of respect from OCG to be able to ban that away. Despite them finding the victory, it was still difficult to really siege that middle Phoenix that one time because of all the sustain. So VGSGods going to go for a different sustain option, one with a little bit more control.
Thor and Ravana here selected for OCG, so a light front line for the guys on OutCold. Thor and Ravana. Thor most likely to find his way into that into the solo lane, right? Zhong not playing some...
It's hard to say right now. I'm expecting on her middle, Zhong the long lane, Thor solo lane, Ravana jungle, depth support.
That's where I'm expecting as well. Thanatos will show up. Thanatos, I used to love Thanatos into Thor because I felt like their ultimates could follow, and the most important part there was Berserker's Barrage was a non-issue with the silence. Now, everything's changed. Thor just could be the guy. We'll see if it's enough to take game number 1. For now, we'll jump to the casters.
Thank you, Anatoly. It's Finch and Taco here on the calls. Moving to game number 2 between OutCold and VGSGods. And VGS were out in front there for a while in game number 1, but then things got away from them. They weren't playing so much as a unit anymore, and they were kind of getting picked individually. Taco, do you think they've made the right adjustments in the draft to make it work?
There's some good adjustments. I really like the introduction of this Thanatos, but a little bit concerned about how TierToxic is going to fare up against Dragon King and just Lion in that mid lane.
Yeah, things are looking a bit different here for VGSGods, right? It looks like TierToxic is in the jungle here for them. They brought in Vixuri into the solo lane, so perhaps they've had to make a bit of a substitution in between. I believe TierToxic was soloing for them last time, so we'll see if this ends up working out for them. OutCold did end up overwhelming them last game, even when they had the sustain of a Hell. This time they're going to try and get done with Marky Sparky on Chang'e.
But not having Drizzle in that jungle position for VGSGods is a pretty big shakeup, Finch, to make mid-set. So not going to be all that easy for VGSGods possibly to find that same level of synergy that they had that brought them so much success in game 1 during that early game portion. Because keep in mind, VGSGods game 1, that was kind of theirs for the taking, and they let it go.
Yes, things definitely got away from them, and I imagine it'll be an even more difficult task this time. ClawLegend on the Skadi this time, as opposed to the Anhur working on a Transcendence Rush. Looks like Justin Lion agrees with him. The only difference is that ClawLegend doesn't have anything in that first slot, which means bad luck onto them, a pox upon their house, those sorts of things, yes.
Not only that, but Just Lion is also playing Anhur. That is a Lion.
Right, he's got some internal synergy there.
He's got his internal passive activated right now as a player.
That's exactly right. Man, that's 2 things working against ClawLegend now. I hope he's able to overcome those elements, at least for the sake of VGSGods. As I expect this start to be a little bit more explosive. I mean, Drizzle, when he was playing the Thor in game 1, was really aggressive, so it looks like TierToxic wants to try and do the same thing on this Thanatos.
Dragon King just gonna keep sliding on through, but a nice cutoff there from TierToxic. Dragon King could get caught out now, but instead TierToxic might have gone a little bit further than he should have.
And he's already used the blink at this point. He doesn't have a safety relic to get him back out. Just Lion finds first blood as TierToxic gets over aggressive, misses the scythe, and ends up falling.
You need that scythe damage on the Thanatos. It's such a huge chunk of HP, and probably would have turned the tables the other way around into a VGSGods first blood. Instead, TierToxic probably suffering the worst fate possible for any Thanatos player, Finch, and that's taking a death within the first 5 levels and being first blooded in the process.
Yes, it's the exact opposite of how you want it to go, right? You pick your Thanatos so you can go find yourself some first blood with that surprise burst scythe damage early on in the game, but instead TierToxic takes a spill And it is a bit unfortunate, you know, if this is not, you know, the main roster that the squad ends up wanting to run with, but you got to be able to make those adjustments on the fly sometimes if you want to be good across an entire phase's worth. And OutCold is certainly a strong test for that.
SMITE gonna connect this time for TierToxic, but GunTeR Warrior just looking to go for the trade out as well. Jolner's 2 Mint not gonna find a home though, and GunTeR will be forced to back off since Hacky started rotating in towards those right side mid harpies. DragonKing giving GunTeR Warrior the shield. Just for good measure. It's the little things that count, Finch.
That's right. That's just it's almost like a Geb hug, right? Just like, hey man, hope you're doing
okay.
all right. Yeah, you're fine.
I'm here for you, dude.
And sends him back to base. I doubt he was in much danger there as Raidunw is on the Zhong. We haven't even talked about this, but it's such a strong pick nowadays, and Marky Sparky in trouble. He actually does get the heal. That's just enough for Marky Sparky to survive. That's huge. And TierToxic comes over to finish, but DragonKing gets a Geb shield to someone who actually needs it this time, and maybe Raidunw can make it out.
These body blocks, though, from DragonKing are just phenomenal right now. Hacky looking to play spoiler, though, for Raidunw either way, but won't be able to connect with that Terra wall clap. Instead, DragonKing has already fulfilled his duties on this Geb support. And now with just line rotating in, ClawLegend could actually be under trouble here.
He could be. In comes GunTeR Warrior on the Thor, and that's another kill for OutCold. Now it's some trouble here for TierToxic as well as GunTeR Warrior hitting him with the laugh spam. Just Lion tried to slow him down. Might have slowed GunTeR Warrior down a little bit more as TierToxic just barely makes it out.
But GunTeR Warrior did tick in for that level 5 already. TierToxic's got to be careful here on the back. For a second, thought that maybe GunTeR Warrior would look for that Anvil of Dawn rather aggressively into the Thanatos, but with OutCold Gaming already off to such a strong start, no real reason for them to try and turn that around just from overstepping their boundaries.
Vexuri changing things up a little bit here in the solo lane. He's gone with this Stone of Binding rush. I think when it was TierToxic on it, we saw him go directly into the pen boots, and then he went into, I didn't see if it was Dynasty Plate Helm or Celestial Legion Helm, but I imagine one of those, considering his physical matchup. So interesting that they've got different ideas on how to start this Jormungandr.
But FataliTyxFire is not really interested in the laning phase. This Ravana is intended for that backline dive potential. It's going to be tough for ClawLegend to stay alive here, just like Hacky could be in some trouble. Good impale into the stun, but GunTeR Warrior is still trying to chase this one down in that T1 tower. In fact, might have gone a little bit too far.
And now he's in trouble. It does have the beads that gets him away from TierToxic into the impale from Just Lion, and they manage to just barely keep GunTeR alive. Even more of the laugh spam as Raidunw evaporates Marky Sparky on his own red buff. OutCold now way out in front here, 4-0. And DragonKing even taken for a while as Just Lion finds ClawLegend under the tier 1.
This is turning into a bloodbath, Finch.
Oh yeah.
OutCold Gaming are just non-stop running at VGSGods, and VGSGods just don't even seem to know which direction to look first. And it's not even so much the fact that OutCold are playing flawlessly, so much as it is that they're just not getting punished for their mistakes, and VGSGods know it.
VGSGods are struggling now to try and find any areas they can fight around. One good piece of good news is that Vexuri is relatively close to FataliTyxFire, a little bit ahead experience-wise, and maybe this Jormungandr, if they can buy some time, because we're still a while away from solo rotations, but if they can hold on, have this Jormungandr come in and play Disruptor, and maybe even clean up some kills.
GunTeR looking to play aggressively one more time, but Just Lion a little bit too far back. That Anhur leap not going to be enough to close the gap for any follow-up damage, so ClawLegend will remain safe and sound for now, but OutCold Gaming still positioning as though they want to keep going in.
Marky Sparky's been caught on his rotation towards the middle lane, and Just Lion makes him pay the tax. TierToxic is up in the air, but I mean, I can't imagine he wants to come down. He comes towards DragonKing and doesn't have enough damage. The Geb shield gets off, and DragonKing makes it out of it. He doesn't even hit the scythe and the impale, or rather the pillar is there to buy him some time. TierToxic finally finds the very first kill of the game for him, but Anvil of Dawn spells his end. It's 7-1.
That impale damage from Just Lion, disgusting, by the way. Didn't even get a chance to really see that knockback either onto TierToxic. And this Thanatos, while he was able to finally find a return pick onto DragonKing, at what cost?
It was his life, yeah. We know the exact cost, unfortunately for him. And then all the farm that's up right now that he can't go get. I mean, it's brutal, man. Where's this Thanatos supposed to go, Taco? I mean, at this point, he can't go gank Raidunw anymore, right? There's Zhong level 9, and he'll just get blown up.
God, 10. Level 10 Zhong
excuse me. Yeah. And for sure, you can't go gank this Ravana either. I just don't know where he goes at this point now that he's fallen behind.
Mid lane's really the only spot left for TyxFire to try and work off of, but the problem is ClawLegend has just not been able to get close enough with Calder or any of that Skadi damage to try and do anything relevant enough for TyxFire to then follow it up with that hovering death. I don't think we've seen a single member from OutCold Gaming get put into that execution threshold prior to TyxFire using the hovering death.
Vexuri forced into the ultimate to get himself out of danger. Just Lion is quite low, and Vexuri does clean up the kill, so the Jormungandr rotation does prove fruitful. GunTeR Warrior now in trouble yet again, and Hacky punches him to death with a little bit of help from the wall stun, and finally, a fight looks good for OutCold, or for VGS.
Hey, if you're struggling to deal damage, just put all 5 members into the same lane, and the numbers will make up for the difference. That was a wise rotation from both of the side lanes there out of VGSGods to try and alleviate some of this heavy pressure that's been applied there into the mid lane. And the jungle more specifically, TyxFire has had a really rough time going about things, but without that waxing moon, Marky Sparky could be in some trouble.
And by could be, we mean is. Or no, Taco, you were right. Marky Sparky has made his way out of here just barely, and now it's Raidunw who needs to call for some backup. TyxFire falls elsewhere to FataliTyxFire. It's Calder that gets the kill up against Raidunw. That's a good boy if I've ever seen one, as ClawLegend gets onto the board, and now FataliTyxFire has overstepped a bit. He's the one with 3 red jerseys surrounding him, but he has been able to buy himself a little bit of time, avoids the root, and is still running.
Check out FataliTyxFire. Take that back. Dragon King, who's trying to wrap around to FataliTyxFire. Geb Shield is good for the cleanse. And he's out of there. FataliTyxFire will manage to survive. All the while, Just Lion has been stripping out VGSGods jungle and soaking up some of that dual lane farm that Raidunw would be forced to miss out on anyway.
It was never close for FataliTyxFire there, Tuck. He knew he was getting out of there. GunTeR even laughing when he missed his abilities, gets away from the wall, and cleans up ClawLegend right in front of his support.
But why would you still stand there? ClawLegend has to know. Thor has a hammer toss. That's the sole purpose of the ability, is to look for the double tap.
You can only throw the hammer if the wall connected first, Taco. And once the wall missed, he knew there was no way he was going to get hit by the hammer, obviously. Except, of course, he did.
GunTeR Warrior playing the mental game, but VGSGods losing their mid laner, also having the poke out against Hacky. There was no one that could have possibly tried to contest on that first Gold Fury, and OutCold Gaming just continue to expand their lead, now even more so because with gold being down, OutCold don't even have to worry about any repercussions of a team fight gone south, because Pyromancer being the next best option for VGSGods, and that's not going to be enough to really even up the scoreboard.
Well, GunTeR Warrior low on mana is going to use the hammer. That's why ClawLegend's dropping the root, trying to set up for TyxFire, but gets juked out, and Just Lion has way too much damage. GunTeR Warrior gets the Geb Shield to keep him alive as well, and now it's all of a sudden an OutCold fight happening under the Tier 1 tower. Hacky in some trouble. The surrender vote coming through. Just Lion puts ClawLegend down, and I don't know, this one might actually have a chance to go through. It's a little too early in the game, but I kind of get the frustration from VGS.
The knockup at the very least going to be off the mark there for Dragon King. So Hacky still on the run for now. Just Lion trying to hunt him down. Lion looking for his prey and will manage to find him with the impale. Hacky not going to be able to get that back off in time. Marky Sparky looking to get revenge here for the Terra, but another Geb Shield, and Just Lion putting on a show here as Marky Sparky going to get cleaned up by Raidunw, no problem.
Raidunw has that blink second relic, but TyxFire gets his second kill on the board as he finds Just Lion a hefty bounty, I'm sure. But in comes GunTeR Warrior. The Anvil of Dawn might not have landed, but now he's here to clean up the kill. TyxFire, who can't be worth a whole lot at this point, does eventually go down. Now it's ClawLegend in some trouble. He's laughing a little bit too, as it appears he's moved into some fun being had between the squads.
I'm going to assume ClawLegend didn't expect OutCold there and ran in expecting to get out. or maybe just looking to pick up the red buff that TierToxic managed to confirm for his team. And once he realized that there were 2 members from OutCold Gaming, and that those 2 members were the Thor and Zhong, there really was no escape potential there for ClawLegend. He's probably dead to all rights.
Yeah, I've got an idea of what might have happened. Doug, can you pull up the graph?
That's a 9.1K experience lead, Finch. It's 9,500, I'm sorry.
Pretty brutal. Yeah, and so, I mean, there is a chance. I mean, we did see, you know, the surrender vote come out a little bit earlier on. I mean, there might be some members of VGSGods who feel this one is out of reach at this point. And, you know, you definitely want to keep on fighting, but at a certain point, numbers are just numbers. And TierToxic going to fall yet again. With your Thanatos this far behind, it becomes very difficult to win.
And for me, Finch, it kind of all goes back. Maybe that early first blood against TierToxic, a little bit of foreshadowing even as to what was going to take place this game. But JustLion really has been going off with this Anhur pick selection. FataliTyxFire coming under fire from all 4 members out of VGSGods, but it is just an absolute bloodbath right now for VGSGods as JustLion takes down 2 with the Desert Fury.
Yeah, it might have looked like a bad situation, but it was just set up for GunTeR Warrior to come in with the Anvil of Dawn and dunk on 3. Now the Tier 2 tower being looked at, DragonKing doing some extra tanking for good measure. Vexuri moves in to try and find some good damage around the pools, but it's not enough even under the Tier 2 tower. Vexuri goes down. TierToxic comes in for another bit of cleanup, but he can't even make it up into the ultimate in time. FataliTyxFire finds one more.
Hovering Death might have found a home as well. GunTeR Warrior and FataliTyxFire both looked as though they were inside of that execution threshold, but unfortunately, it's just not going to pan out for VGSGods. And TierToxic will get another chance off the respawn. There's one bright side for VGSGods, so these respawn timers aren't super long, Finch.
That's right. ClawLegend and TierToxic in particular will be back up quite quickly if they end up taking any spills, so maybe they can use that to re-engage and catch OutCold out of position. But I mean, they're down so much at this point. One piece of good news is the Tier 2 tower did not go down. They did defend that successfully.
I feel the worst for Hacky, because as the support in a game where your team is just getting dominated, you really don't have anywhere to look for farm. Hacky just trying to be as relevant as possible. Has had some really clean disengages for VGSGods. Also, it's just the power from OutCold Gaming's composition in this mid-game stride, Finch, devastating right now for VGSGods. Even when it looks as though VGSGods can try and have a chance to survive or find a response kill, OutCold Gaming just shuts it down because they're so far out in front.
And OutCold are covering their options as well. The Brawlers, Beatstick, the Pestilence, the Divine Ruin, all picked up. So the Sustain from TierToxic, obviously from MarkySparky on the Chang'e and Hacky, all starting to be circumvented here as well. In the itemization choices is now ClawLegend. Yeah, it does indeed look as though VGSGods have started to recognize they're probably not going to be able to grab the win here, as we see ClawLegend having a bit of fun. GunTeR Warrior does make it up into the air, but in comes JustLion. He's the one that's been all business all game. TierToxic goes down. Next up is Hacky in some trouble. JustLion finds one more. Vexuri going to fall to the pressure there as well. It's only MarkySparky that's still standing, and yeah, the surrender vote goes through, and it's OutCold that grabbed the win.
Yeah, MarkySparky surviving because of the fact that he just wasn't in that part of the map at the time. He's over there in dual lane instead, and you know, in all fairness, I think that this was just one that kind of got away from them in the early game. VGSGods, they look solid in game number 1. I think the potential is definitely there for that team. Maybe a little bit of that frustration factor kind of bled through from game 1 into game 2 here, but the control was just overwhelming from OutCold Gaming.
Yeah, and it is, of course, again, worth mentioning that TierToxic wasn't in the solo this time. He was in jungle. Vexuri had to step in for them, and for what it's worth, I do think Vexuri looked fine in the fights that we did see from him and some of what he was able to do, but clearly I think not being at that full strength, or at least having the same roster that we saw in game 1, hindered VGSGods a little bit here in this match. They were behind from minute 1 and never got back in control.
It was just impossible for ClawLegend or TierToxic to have any sort of opportunity to come back into that one, but again, that's also just experience shining through, I think, on OutCold Gaming. They recognize the pressure that they had over that mid-jungle position and just refused to give it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you pick someone as aggressive as a Thanatos, someone that has to get the ball rolling early. It could be a real snowballing god, and it doesn't work out that way for him. So that is our very first set here of the day in the books. We got plenty more console, though, coming your way. Refresh the drinks, whatever you got to do. Get right back here for some more SCL.